Welcome to a Blue Star Careers webinar. I'm Laura Torres. Thank you for joining us. We are definitely fully aware that looking for work is not easy and can be draining in your time, in your energy. All military spouses, of course, all have experiences, and we all know, correct? So today we're talking to one of resources out there in the employment and workforce development community, staffing agencies, about staffing agencies and how virtual jobs, remote jobs, local jobs can be identified through this method. So I'll tell you real quick, staffing agencies have jobs in virtually all occupations, you've never heard of, or maybe if you have a very unique career, can be a way for you to work. Looking for work is an in-person process. That's what agencies sometimes can work one-on-one with job seekers to ensure that they positions their skill sets and needs, particularly sometimes when we have had large gaps or a specific job situations. I know myself, I have experienced multiple work collaborations with staffing agencies throughout career development. I personally worked with a few very dedicated staffing agencies that helped me build my experience and landed key that led to my current career position. Today, we have the privilege of working with Radstand as a member, and I'm going to share with you in just a little bit who she is. Consulting and work development solutions, engineering, accounting, finance, healthcare, human resources, life science. Whoa, the list is just endless. So without further ado, let's get started with this webinar. As usual, pay it this webinar you watch it, pay it forward by taking male spouse sharing this webinar, because we want to make sure that all male spouses get back into the workforce. Well, hello, friend and employer partner, research partner. What should I call you and refer to you as?
Well, you can just call me Karin.
There you go. Karin Childress from Randstad is here. She's the BP Veteran Center of Excellence. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate us about how we can find and identify meaningful work through staffing agencies, but most importantly, through Randstad. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. There is no topic that I love more than the topic of helping military spouses have a meaningful career. So thank you for the opportunity to do this today.
Great, thank you. So tell us, we always like to put our guests on the spot. And talk about your male spouse story, your military story. How are you affiliated, or anything you feel that let you to support our community and allows you to do this incredible work that allows all military spouses and veterans get connected to employment opportunities.
Sure, I'm happy to share. So I am. My dad was in the military, and so I did have a military connection as I was growing up, and spent time traveling around as part of that military story. But my real journey in supporting this community began when I met my husband. So I'm a military spouse. My husband served in the Marine Corps for 22 years. And, there was a longstanding history of military service in my family. My dad, as I mentioned, my grandfathers, my uncles, and some really, really important people and people that I'm honored to be connected to in my family. And so it really surprised no one when I ended up married to a Marine. I met him when he was new into the service. And so he served for 22 years and we were married for 16 of those 22 years. I never know how to say that. We are still married, but only 16 years of our marriage was he in the service, and he's now retired. And the interesting thing about that is that concurrent to my relationship with him building was my career, which always was in staffing. And about the same time as he and I met, I joined Monster.com and had the privilege of eventually running their recruitment media and recruitment advertising program, which was new and expanding to include diversity networks, diversity sites. And around that same time, we acquired military.com. And so really, as my relationship with my then boyfriend and who became my husband, as that relationship was growing, so was my career developing into leading military.com and our veteran employment program. So the two things kind of built hand in hand until eventually now, many, many years later, I'm now, as you mentioned, the vice president of the Veteran Center of Excellence for Ronstadt, who today owns Monster and military.com. And so it's really been just an amazing journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. I mean, what an incredible story. Your personal story, you are and just, navigating also your own personal military journey as well. And so, firsthand the challenges and all the different experiences that we go through, our service members go through, our kids, our future job seekers. And so I think perhaps that's probably what keeps your most outstanding of energy to continue to support and find, the best practices and best support for our community. And I have a secret to share. I previously worked for Radstand. Yeah. Okay, I did it. But one of my previous employment opportunities was, and it was held and was supported through Randstad. So I know firsthand that it is an incredible way for you to get your foot in the door through many, many companies, or sometimes to just find and navigate a career opportunity on a temporary basis, if that is the need, which was my need in that particular, my particular experience. So was extremely impressed with the service, the support that I had from my particular lead, and it was a really great, growing experience. So.
Yeah. One of my very first professional jobs as I was getting into the workforce was also through a staffing company. I didn't intend for that to happen. It just happened to be that way. So I think when you're exposed to staffing companies early in your career and you begin to understand what they are, I've seen it so many times, like you just said, be that springboard to a career that I don't think a lot of people understand exactly what they are. And there's a question in the chat about whether or not my work with Monster was telework. So this was definitely pre-COVID. But at the time, in the sales organizations at Monster, we did have offices. We worked from home. We mostly saw our clients. But I did have to navigate a very tricky PCS from Southern California to rural Kentucky. And I was lucky enough to work for an organization that understood that as a military spouse, I wasn't in control of that location change. And it actually led me to an opportunity to lead a nationwide team instead of a region-based team. So they definitely knew how to do it right.
Wonderful. Thank you. And once again, I want to remind our audience, we're all over across most of our chapters here at Blue Star Families, as well as on LinkedIn, our Spouseforce virtual community, as well as our main Facebook page. It has a large audience. We have neighbors, civilians, we have supporters, as well as all of our military spouse community and our military service members. So everyone out there watching and looking for a career and may not necessarily know and understand how staffing agencies work, please turn in, tag, pay it forward, because Karin is here to share all about Randstad, but also answer your questions and maybe clear a little bit some of those taboos about not working with a staffing agency, and why perhaps if you are scared of you're not quite understanding the process, we're definitely here to support you. So you are going to educate us and tell us all the best practices and how we can get started with you guys, right?
Yes, that's my plan. And although I work for Randstad, and of course I love Randstad, I think they're the absolute best staffing company out there. The things I say today really will apply to all the different staffing companies. And so, I will probably frequently say the word Randstad, but, think of it as applying to the staffing companies that you might be familiar with as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're going to bring some just general graph for you guys to follow, but this is interactive. So I really want all of our audience to please post your questions, and you see me looking away, so please understand I'm looking at two different monitors because I want to make sure I capture all of your questions. Some of them will show up in our feed, so we'll be able to bring those up to Karin and so we can address those for you. But if for some reason you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at some of our other monitors that some of your questions might not necessarily pop. So thank you so much, Karin. Take it over.
Okay. Well, first, we talk a lot about staffing companies, and, I'll probably casually say that word on this call today. But I think it's important. One of the first most important things to do to really understand our business is maybe to move away from the word staffing, because I think it has some older connotations to it as far as what we really do. We call ourselves a workforce solutions organization, and that's really what we do. We work with our clients to help their talent demand challenges or their workforce challenges. And in today's economy, in today's workforce landscape, there isn't an employer out there that isn't dealing with some sort of challenge as it relates to their talent. Right now, most of the market is dealing with a talent shortage or a skill shortage. They simply cannot fill their open positions, or they cannot find the people who have the skill sets to fill their open positions. And so I've got some stats, which I promise I won't bore you with all the stats, but I do kind of want to show you the way we work, that we'll talk about what Ronstadt is. And again, while I think we're the best and we definitely are the largest, these will apply to other staffing companies too. But why would you work with a staffing company or a workforce development company? As a military spouse, why might it be a good pathway for you? One reason is because it puts this organization who has thousands of companies that they do business with, whose job it is to put people to work, puts them in your corner. And it creates a continuity across geographies, across companies, across timelines. And it really gives you this massive organization that is working behind you. And we were talking about a couple different questions that were submitted in advance. And a lot of those questions were about what happens when I need a PCS, what happens when my geographies don't line up. And those are the types of questions that a staffing company can answer. Okay, so here's that data, and I promise I'm not going to read you off every piece of information on the slide, but I do want to give you some perspective on who Ronstadt is. First of all, we are the world's largest staffing company. We're headquartered in, we are a Dutch-based company, so we are a European company with a U.S. headquarters in Atlanta. We put over half a billion people to work each day, 568 million people to work, with nearly 35,000 corporate employees or internal employees, with thousands of clients. When you think about our clients in the US that have global locations, it does open up the idea to even have some continuity with overseas moves. Now, I want to be really careful on how I say that, because there is so much regulation on whether or not that's possible, but it opens the potential for that type of support because we're a global organization. I'll tell you something else. Now, I know absolutely not all military spouses are female. The stat is about 92% of military spouses are female. But one of the things I value the most about Ronstadt is that we are a 51% female leadership organization. This is a company that absolutely values women in leadership positions, and it's something that you will see in action across our organization. And although not all military spouses are female, I think we can agree that this is a female-heavy population. And so to have a company like Randstad that believes in that same philosophy is important to have in your corner. And you can see the different countries that we work with. These are our North American statistics, which I think are a little bit more relevant probably to most of the people on the line today. Here in the U.S., we're a nearly $5 billion organization with nearly 6,000 internal employees. We've got 1,100 branches and in-house locations across the United States, and with 86,000 talent on assignment every week. So when you take our internal employees and our talent, that's about 90,000 employees here in the U.S. That makes us a very large U.S. employer. And I'll dive into this a little bit more. Here's probably the one that is most meaningful to you. One of the things that Laura said was really any industry that you're in. And I think that that's important. I think that there was maybe in the past a misperception about the type of work that staffing companies did. And I can tell you that today we go across all lines of business. Really, no matter what industry you're in or what experience you have, we've got the best jobs that are available. Technology, engineering, life sciences, manufacturing, professionals, all across the board. Sella is our newest acquired company, and they do creative and marketing, and we're finding a lot of success for military spouses at Sella. What we know is that companies today cannot find the workers they need, and they're leaning more and more and more on organizations that have an expertise in helping them solve their talent solutions. The more they lean on us, the more we need to gain that expertise. And so that's why our scope is expanding. I'm going to stop right there. Any questions? I know there's, I'm not really watching that feed, but anything you need from me before I keep going?
Yes, we have some questions, but first I want to take a breather and go, wow, 90,000 employees across the US. That's incredible support right there.
Yeah. Biggest company you've never heard of? Right?
Right. In just, the opportunities are endless because like we mentioned earlier, that you cover just about any industry. And all I kept thinking as I was preparing for this webinar, Karin, was, that military spouse or that individual sometimes who reaches out, who has a very unique background, or because of their the gap in employment has had to detour into other areas because certain communities where we get to move don't have the specific jobs. I guess you can say it doesn't quite, they don't quite announce it as often, or it's really hard to compete with some of those opportunities because our role or previous background is so unique that it really takes a staffing agency, a supportive partner like Randstad, to help us identify it and get our foot in the door in some of those larger companies or some of those really scattered opportunities.
Yeah. There's a question that just came up in the feed that I want to answer because I think that this is probably maybe really like the meat on the bone as to why we're uniquely positioned to serve the military spouse community. So we had 86,000 people at work at our clients, right? That's our product. If you want to think of it that way, the product we produce is the people that we have working at our clients. So when COVID hit, all of those people had to go home, right? They had to go home to work. But the world needed to keep working. And if we just sent everybody home, we wouldn't be in business anymore. Within 2 weeks, we mobilized a strategy to take what was a 95% in-office workforce of 86,000 people, and we put them into home offices. Within 2 weeks, that was a massive sea change at a place like Randstad. And we did that not just once because they were our employees, but we had to do it in 1,000 different strategies to match what our clients needed. each client had a different strategy for what they needed. And so within 2 weeks, we shifted from an in-person business model to a work from home business model. And I'll tell you, we now have a way to have a mobile talent strategy, which we really didn't have in place before COVID. And so we're equipped now to service our clients in person and mobile. And then the other unique thing that happened as we came out of COVID is when you think about what a staffing company does, as all of these employees actually belong to Ronstadt and not to the client, any new rule or regulation that came in place from the government around, testing or vaccinations or masking or any of these things passed through Randstad. And so we became extremely efficient at applying these new rules. And I'll tell you that really has allowed us to be more flexible than we ever thought possible. And so I've pushed very hard, and people here at Ronstadt have been extremely open to the idea that we never need to go back to this older way of thinking, as it has opened doors up for our military spouses. And there's a slide at the end, and I don't want to shoot the fireworks right now. I'd rather at the end, but we took some of these practices and applied them to military spouse specific projects, and really have had huge success now that we understand how to have a flexible work from home, mobile employment strategy.
Wonderful. And and you're absolutely right. My previous personal experience in interacting with you guys in my previous life, I belong completely to Randstad. And although I represented a different company, right, through my work and my day to day, and but just the support, the benefits, the accessibility to just be completely in compliance and onboarded and up to date on any policies was super efficient. Like I said, I had the most wonderful experience working with my one-on-one case manager, who she was in New York and I was actually in San Diego. So we never met, but she was always in communication because, she was helping me, making sure that my career growth and traction and supporting their client was all up to date. And we were really collaborating, coordinating, because I was representing them as well. I was representing them. I was representing Randstad through my employer and through the community. Then I belonged to somebody else. But anyway, it's a really good way. I can tell you from personal experience, if you open up, it can be a great way for you to land a career. So do you want to go over more questions, Karin, and or do you want to continue?
Well, there's a question in here about bias, but I want to answer that. I want to answer that later when I'm talking about some of the projects that we put in place. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna keep going because I want to get to this slide. I think that this slide is really important because I think that this is probably the biggest misconception. We talk a lot about the ways in which we put people to work. And I think that the way that many people understand a company like Ronstadt to work is that historical idea of staffing. And for us as a workforce solutions company, we do a whole lot more than staffing. So we talk about the way we put people to work using this 4-word phrase: buy, rent, borrow, build. Rent, so you're renting your talent from us, is really where that temporary staffing comes into play. And that is, short-term work. And by short-term, that can still mean a year-long assignment or even a 2-year-long assignment. But, it's, project-based or short-term work. And so temporary staffing as you know it. But we do that work in very sophisticated ways. We do contract-based IT work in, aerospace engineering projects, right? So it's not temp staffing necessarily just in an office or not necessarily just in a professional setting. In fact, we have a massive business in Ronstadt Technologies Group that is contract and contingent STEM-based work. And you'll find that IT is an area that has just an extremely high volume of contract and contingent work. So very normal if you're in the IT space to be on a contract that may last a year or 2 years. So while it is temp staffing, it's really not that historical version of temporary staffing.
Can I interrupt you? It just it's just lit up, and this could be a way for some of our learners or some of our individuals that go through certifications in IT and pivot careers to get their foot in the door through some of these
100%.
placements.
Absolutely. So when you think about the largest employers in the United States, and I don't want to say their names on this call because I'll either accidentally say the wrong one or I won't say the best ones or something. So I'm not going to say any name. But you all think of the largest employers in the United States, guaranteed they are using contract or contingent labor in their IT department, 100% without a doubt. So if you're making a transition, if you've just recently gone through an upskilling program like a Cisco Cyber Vets or a Salesforce program or an Amazon certification program or any of those certification programs, it is possible that the fastest, easiest, path of least resistance way to get that first job at that big employer is on a contract. And, it is absolutely a positive way to start. Come in on a 1-year contract, even a 6-year contract. A 6-month contract. You now have your first experience in the civilian sector. You get to put that certificate to work. And when that contract is over, that staffing company will be working to get you on the next contract, especially if you do a good job and the client feedback is positive. 100% they'll be trying to get you out there on the next contract because, frankly, that's the business that they're in, right? So every large employer out there that has an IT department, which is everyone, has direct hires and contract and contingent hires in their IT department, working hand in hand. So many of the organizations that we see, and again, I'm not going to say a single name so that I don't accidentally say the wrong one, but many of the organizations that we see that have a strong military-friendly brand, that show up at a lot of these military events or military spouse events, the groups that you're connecting to are only working with the direct hire positions. But there may be 100 contract positions available at that same employer, and only the staffing companies will be your access point to get to those contract positions. So it's really important to understand how companies bring talent into their business.
And that's precisely why we love to do these webinars, so that you who are actually doing the work and you're the boots on the ground can educate us in what is the best practices and the best way for our military spouse community to take advantage and open different alternatives, different avenues, different bridges for us to land that desirable career path.
And while we're on that point, because I think that it's clear that what I just said is a positive thing, right? Or it's an understood thing. They have direct hire and then they have additional needs, so they use a company to help them fill their additional needs. I do think that there is some stigma about the idea of a company placing veterans or military spouses into an organization and charging the company for that. There's conversation around, and you probably hear this as a nonprofit. Maybe we've engaged in this conversation before. We are for profit, you are nonprofit, and this idea about whether or not it's okay that we charge our customers to place a veteran or a military spouse. And I just want to be really clear. We charge our customers to place a person, regardless of whether or not they are a veteran or a military spouse. We don't charge any more or less, regardless. Our business is in placing people, and we charge for that service, but not more or less if they're a veteran or a military spouse. And so I do hear that sometimes about charging in this area, and I just want to make sure that we kind of lay that out on the table.
Yeah. I do have one question that it doesn't show here, and it's important. How can you? One of the things that through staffing agencies or work, identifying work like this for some of our members is the fact that they have to go through temporary or contract positions. How can we get over that? What is your best tip? How you've been in this particular work for a while? How can we bypass that stigma or that fear that is just temporary. And I know you mentioned it
I
earlier,
know.
as
Well,
well.
so there's a couple different ways, a couple different ways. Number one, if you're on an IT contract making $80,000 a year, who cares? Right? Like on one hand, are you getting like great pay, great benefits, and a great job and great experience? But you're not, I think it's that idea of the word staffing that needs to be sort of gotten rid of, not the idea of the work itself. I think the part that we really need to understand is what is the work, and it could be a year-long contract. While you're on that contract, you have benefits, you have a 401k, you could have benefits, you could have a 401k, you could be paid at a very high wage, there could be a bonus. There could be a sign-on bonus. There's a lot that comes with it that could feel just like a regular job. There could be an option to convert to a direct hire at the end of the contract period. And then also, I think it's important to understand that there's also a huge amount of roles that come through a staffing company that are direct hire permanent roles from the get-go. And that's, we can talk about that on the rest of this slide here, that companies use us to find their permanent employees as well. And so just because you're working with a Randstad or any other staffing company does not mean that you'll be on a contract or a temporary job.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's keep on going and tell us more about it. We have tons of more questions, but go ahead.
The borrow section is one I'm actually really excited to talk to military spouses about. And that's something that we call managed service programs or emerging talent programs. And this is where the clients outsource an entire project to us or an entire division to us, where they might say, we have an end goal. The end goal is we want to have, I'll give you a real life example. We have a data team. And in 2 years, we want that data team to be an artificial intelligence team. So sort of upskill from being current state data analyst to future state artificial intelligence data scientists. And they outsource that entire department to us for a 2-year period. So we not only do we hire the people, but we do the work. We produce the work. And in that project, we're responsible for hiring people. And as part of that, we hire in experts, absolutely people at the top of their field, artificial intelligence, data scientists who are providing mentorship and guidance and leadership for the team. We hire in people that are ready to do the work and have the potential to grow to leadership positions in the future. And we hire in people that are at that data level, and we put them in a position to upskill and train to be the future of what they're looking for. So we create these teams that are a mix. We call that emerging talent, where we're actually skilling and developing this pool. And that's where we have the potential to bring in military spouses and veterans into these upskilling programs. An example of one of these programs is a Spouseforce project that we work on with PwC, where we bring in talent that are at a certain level. We put them through a paid Salesforce training program, some executive coaching, and then they go to work as a Salesforce consultant at PwC, and we're kind of managing that whole program.
Wonderful. Yeah, we shared that throughout our
Spouseforce community. That's a different one, though.
Oh my God. Okay.
That's a
breaking news. Breaking news here. You heard it first here.
That actually falls in our build category, which is, and they are sort of the same. Wow. But in our build category, where we take people who do not yet have the skills and we turn them into people who can do the work. So another great example of that would be the PwC Return to Work program, which would be we take people who have a 4-year degree and some amount of professional experience, and we put them through an executive leadership and consulting and Salesforce administrator training program and give them the opportunity to work as Salesforce consultants But we have that same talent development program for test technicians and maintenance mechanics and project managers, you name it, where we bring people in that are at an entry level and we upskill them and place them at a higher level. And that is where we are literally building a workforce that has the skill sets that our clients are asking us for. And we have had some huge success with military spouses and veterans in those areas.
I just want you to know that as you are discussing this incredible project, I am building mentally on my list of male spouses that I know are in the Salesforce ecosystem, or the enthusiasm, as I call them, Salesforce enthusiasts, who are pursuing this type of industry. And I just made a
Yeah.
list. So if you get a text from me later on, community, if you get a text from me or you have a messenger, it's because I'm letting you know to watch the replay.
Yeah. Because we're closing that up, we're not closing the program, we're closing the recruiting for that program out fairly quickly now. So if that's something that's interesting to you. So the requirements of that are, you have a 4-year degree in a professional category. Computer science would be awesome, but it doesn't have to be. And you have some level of professional experience, meaning you've worked in a professional environment before. And you've been either out of work or underemployed for the past 12 to 18 months. And, underemployed has some flexibility there in what we mean. Then you're eligible for that program.
Do you need to move the slides forward? I just wanted to.
No, I just want to cover off on this last one, because this one's important. The other way that people get talent from us is buy. And they buy that talent from us. And this, while it looks like just one blue wedge, is actually a huge part of our business called recruitment process outsourcing. And this is where clients outsource all of their hiring to Randstad, where Randstad acts as if we are the employer. And this is where we're doing the vast majority of our direct hire and permanent placing. And so these are, you want to work at Cisco, you come through a Randstad team and you're getting a direct hire or permanent position at Cisco, but you're doing that through Ronstadt. You'll find those jobs listed on the Randstad USA website, right? And so just because you're working with a staffing company does not mean that the only jobs available are temporary jobs. Huge amounts of direct hire permanent jobs available through our organization as well, on behalf of our clients. And now I will move the slides. Okay, and then just a little bit here on the Veteran Center of Excellence. Our mission is to be at the intersection of supply and demand for diverse talent, with a goal of bringing together employers, training programs, and these talent delivery models that I just mentioned. We've got a couple different ways that we do that. We've got our Veteran Talent Exchange and our Military Spouse Talent Exchange. These are essentially talent communities of veterans and military spouses that we pull from when our clients are asking us specifically for veteran hires or military spouse hires. Of course, we own military.com too, which is, obviously a very large audience reach. But it's built also on our partnerships with training providers. So a lot of these programs are both sources that we get talent in from and training programs that we can push talent to. So we've got our AI Academy, our cybersecurity programs, the Microsoft MSSA program. We have a very in-depth and multifaceted relationship with Cisco, where we are both taking in their talent and placing people at Cisco. We've got a military spouse priority project at Cisco and Google, and you can read the rest of what's here on the slide. So this is the program that I run here at Randstad. And then I just want to hit, let's see if there's any of these that I haven't covered. I want to just cover these stats here on the left-hand side. One, frankly, because I'm proud, but also because I want to celebrate with this community what can be done when you just, when you have an organization that understands the value of an audience and when you make the connection between that audience and the jobs. In the past 12 months, we've placed 1,000, and I say the word intentional military spouse hires, and I use that word meaning I'm sure we placed so many more military spouses that they just were military spouses and we didn't know it. But these are that we were working on a project specifically because they were a military spouse. So this is hired intentionally because they were a military spouse hires, where we can track about $45 million worth of income that we have put into the military family community across 10 dedicated military spouse solution engagements. So again, this is not, we have a client who had an opening and we put a military spouse into it by accident. This is specific projects. The one that I want to share with you is this cell phone manufacturer example here at the bottom. They were a large cell phone company that probably almost all of us who are on the phone or on this call have one of their phones. They needed some customer support. It was work at home. But what was interesting about the role is it required a very high level of security, background check, credit check. It was a very intense security process in order to get this work from home customer service job. And so there was a bit of a disconnect between role and required security check, if that makes sense. And so we got the idea that military spouses sort of aligned with that. Right. And they needed to hire 1,000 of these people in a 2-week period. We moved through the process and had 400 of those hires as military spouses. What we found is that the pace in which we could find military spouses, we could hire them because they clearly over-delivered in the interview process. They were probably overqualified for the role, but they were the roles that the military spouses wanted because they were remote customer service roles, and that they were passing the background portion and security portion at a faster clip than the non-military spouses were. And so we hired 400 military spouses in 2 weeks on that project. We also are the top military-friendly employer in the U.S., but I already said their name earlier, which is Cisco. We've got this military spouse priority project. So in a certain department in Cisco, which is their people and communities department or their human resources department, for every role that comes through that organization, for the first 72 hours, we submit only military spouses on those roles. And the idea is to give military spouses a 72-hour head start, and so that their resumes are reviewed first. Oftentimes, it's just that little bit of leg up that military spouses need. Now, the way that program works is it is the best candidate gets the job. So it is not always that the military spouse gets the job, but they get the fair head start in getting the interview, which is really, I think, what we're asking for, right?
Absolutely. We just want the interview, and then we'll wow you the rest of the time.
That's right. And if you don't have the experience that is required for the job, then we have programs to help you get the experience, but we can't necessarily give you the job that you're not qualified for. So that's why we thought that the 72-hour head start was really the leg up that they were looking for.
Absolutely. That's great. Well, wow, this is so incredible. Thank you. I mean, it definitely, comes to reaffirm and reassure the idea that many, many great, incredible opportunities, and lots of us are perhaps missing out to break it into our ideal career path by not selecting and not working directly with a staffing agency. And obviously, Randstad is my personal experience. It's been one of the greatest, opportunities that I was exposed to. And if you have a chance to, follow the links that I already shared, they're under the comments. Please go and apply and build your profile now. Don't wait till the job comes out. Just because we have the 72-hour head start in certain roles, that means that it's for every single one of them. No. Always build your profile, be career ready, try to as much as you can, and then start working your way in with the local contact. And I do want to take some questions right now, Karin, or simply just acknowledge some of the comments. So we are actually right here. Hey, hello, Dawn. Dawn is always a great supporter who is all the way in Hawaii. Thank you for supporting and watching all the way to Hawaii, and please pay it forward all the way out there in the island and share it with our community out there. So here is a question. If interested to hear about opportunities with Monster telework for Crane, do you think the type of work you did? Oh, I think you already answered this before, right? Okay. So let's move on. Well, going to comments, and I am going to put you. We're getting ready to wrap it up. We don't want to be mindful of your time, but I did wanted to ask and put you on the spot a little bit. Just, I know you mentioned briefly about Okana's opportunities. You guys are right across. What could that potentially do for military spouses in certain areas? Of course, like you said, that is it's just a very, very intense process. But
Yeah.
what can you say to simplify it or understanding? How can we leverage the Okana's opportunities through Radstand?
Yes. So first of all, like asterisks all over this, right? Because this is not a simplified statement, and literally every situation is going to be a unique situation. But with a company like Randstad that has US based companies that have roles globally that we're managing from the US, and US based companies that have relationships with our offices globally. So, for example, a Cisco office in the UK with a Randstad office in the UK, just a super hypothetical example. It does open up the potential to find opportunities where it might line up to make those connections. At least a better chance than perhaps trying to do it on your own.
Thank you. Yes. And that's,
like
and
I
that's,
said, asterisks at the front, back, and the top and bottom, all over that, but it does open up the potentials.
right, absolutely. And everything is always subject to regulations, it's always to the fine print, blah, blah, and I can go on right now really fast and read all that disclosures, but at least it's another potential door that if explored, with great intentions and with the right support, it could be another opportunity that at least understand how to navigate Okana's work perhaps a little bit better, or who are the key players and where you can go. Here, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I saw a question there about identifying as a military spouse or writing in your cover letter. The last page of this deck has some links. You can join. We have a military spouse talent community, which is a way at Ronstadt that you can identify as a military spouse. So as you join, essentially it's just a way to upload your resume, but by uploading it there, it flags you as a military spouse. So that's one way to do it. You can see for me, I'm not shy on my LinkedIn profile about identifying as a military spouse. My personal recommendation is that if you've got something on your resume that needs explaining, right, a big gap or some sort of strange career jump or something that the explanation is that you're a military spouse, well, you might as well go ahead and put it on your resume, right? Just because it's an opportunity to explain it, and most certainly put it in a cover letter, although cover letter is less likely to get read than a resume. So you might want to put it into your resume. It could even go as a line of experience to explain what you were doing during that time period. There's some interesting movement. I'm sure you know this, but in the state of Virginia, military spouse is now a protected class. So if you're in Virginia, I would most definitely put military spouse on your resume. But when you see a move like that happen in one state, it's likely to follow in others. Right. So there is no reason not to put military spouse on your resume these days. I think there's a lot more people that understand its benefits than those that are fearful of its negatives. Okay. Yeah, the other thing about military spouses, and I'm sure you guys have heard this from lots of other speakers, but the problem used to be that you were going to leave jobs after 2 years. Well, now if you can get someone to stay at a job for 2 years, it's a celebration. So it's not as much of a fear factor as it once was.
Absolutely. Yes. Be proud, tell it, especially, in fact, if you are working with a staffing agency, that is just, the model and the understanding in most occasions, because it is temp to hire, contract work, and definitely permanent positions. So you just never know. And by all means, be upfront with your one-on-one individual, who's working with you in your case, and you'll get the support that you need. Absolutely.
If
So
you're working
here's
with
one question.
Ronstadt, for
Yeah.
absolutely sure, tell us, because we have
Yes.
lots of military spouse priority programs, and so
Absolutely. And we want to make sure that Karin celebrates, because all those metrics get celebrated. And when you are a recruiter, when you are a program manager, and we are in this industry that her and I are, we are always looking for great success in celebrations of our members who identify it and use their services. So here's a quick question about project management area. Do you know a program that works for project managers or future project managers? That's something that you guys can support.
Yeah, well, we hire for project managers inside of these clients all the time. If you're talking about getting a PMP cert or something like that, there are all sorts of programs that offer those for you, often free for military spouses. There are many of them. Onward to Opportunity, I'm hesitating. Is Onward to Opportunities PMP free for military spouses?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
it is.
programs like Onward to Opportunity, but there's so many of them, and so many new platforms changing. Cisco just 2 weeks ago now launched their new platform called Skills for All. If you Google Cisco Skills for All, all of their certificates up to their intermediate level are now available for free. So and that's not a PMP, so it's not answering that question.
We don't have the PMP, but we do have our own learning hub where our members can actually learn a project management through our Coursera Google efforts. And
Google has it.
So we have all of those incredible opportunities for members. And then again, you definitely want to contact and stay connected with Randstad staff and their programs so that you can get your foot in the door. Now that you earn your certification, and that's precisely why we're working on this particular webinar and bringing you incredible resources like this one, so that you understand how can you utilize that certificate if you're lacking some of the basic experience that sometimes you find when you're working directly with the employer, when you're going straight forward to their job opportunities. It's too intense sometimes, too intense. So don't do it alone. Do it with a trusted partner, and definitely do it with Randstad. So, and Karin, of course, so that we can celebrate and add more numbers to the achievement, to the success. And at the end of the year of 2022, we can say, oh my God, we placed, or we helped, or we supported over 2,000. We can double up or triple up the numbers of military spouses getting into the workforce development.
For sure.
Okay, well, we are way over our time, Karin. So thank you so much. This is a little bit longer than we'd always do, but it's been an incredible learning opportunity for our members. We have so many. We have quite a bit of an audience out here on my left. I can see the other monitor, and that's in a different community. We have out here our Spouseforce members are there. Danae, we have Priscilla, Fabiola. We have Rocio there, and they're watching. And then, of course, all of our other audiences through all of our chapter communities that are watching and supporting as well. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and then coming over and tell us any last tips, tricks as we close this incredible resource and webinar segment on behalf of Randstad.
Only just that now is the time. COVID changed the rules of the game for everyone, and military spouses can benefit from it more than anyone else. Some of the old baggage that held us back is gone now. So now is the time to get out there and reestablish yourself. Companies are looking for more and more talent. Remote work is more and more acceptable, and gaps in experience are acceptable. So now's the time. If you want to get back into it, now's the time.
Wonderful. So now is the time. Now is the time to join and stay up to date at Spouseforce, your virtual community, as well as go online. The link has been dropped under the comments for you to go and build your profile in Randstad. And of course, follow Karin and follow us on LinkedIn so that you can stay all up to date with the latest projects and communicate, stay up to date and pay it forward. That's the biggest thing. Pay it forward to one of our other community members who might not be aware that this opportunity and this support exists. And that's the best way you can help and help yourself as well. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Karin. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
See ya.